Disgusting.
And we're live, and our house today is Mike Bell. Is that correct?
Mark Bell.
Mark Bell.
Yes.
See, we had Mick and Arnie last week,
Yes.
and I kept calling him Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's Mark Bell,
Yep.
part of Plague Doctor Press. I'm John Simon. I'm behind the counter. In front we have Sam.
Hello, everybody.
Somewhere on the side is Jeremiah.
Hi, guys.
All right, and we're here to talk to you about Plague Doctor Press.
So, Plague Doctor Press is a independent comic book publisher that is really just me. That is started really in earnest in 2018 in Bloomington, and this comes from my inability to draw. And I'll tell a little story. When I was doing my master's in Ball State, this would be 2005, 2006, 2007 time frame, I said, okay, this is it. I'm going to learn to draw. I wanted to do comics all my life. I have lots of comic scripts, but no comics because I can't draw. So I bought all the books. I bought pencils. I bought the pads. I bought special erasers. I had a T-square, a whole bit. I worked 30 to 40 minutes every day until my wonderful wife said, it's time to stop. Because you're not going to be an artist. And I was like, okay. So I started a PhD at IU, and that went through really well. And then I started working at a school in Bloomington you might have heard of called Harmony.
Yes.
I worked at a high school in Harmony. And then I turned 50. And this is a new thing for me to turn 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote out a list. I said, okay, this is what I want to get done. And I realized in this list that I had more projects than time. Just simple, more projects than time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going anywhere soon, but there were a lot of projects on that list, like multi-year projects. And I sort of set that aside and then said, no, I want to do a comic. I have to do a comic. I want to get something published. So I had gone to Chicago Comic Con, Wizard World. It was Wizard World at this point in time. In like 99, 2001, somewhere around there. And I had went to one of those, it was a panel and it had professional writers in it. And they said, if you want to write for Batman, there are fewer people working in Marvel and DC than there are professional athletes in North America. So unless you're working at that level, you're not going to write at DC and Marvel. Now, 2001, I was like, I'm never going to get anywhere then. But things have changed since then, and I took the time to look into independent comics and Kickstarters and things like that. I said, well, maybe I could do this. So I knew that if I was going to find a writer, if I was going to find an artist, the first thing I was going to do was pay this artist, because you see it all the time online, this notion of artists getting ripped off, paid by exposure and stuff like that. And those people are working, and they're working hard, and they deserve to be paid. So with that in mind, I was like, the first thing an artist is going to ask me after, are you going to pay me, is, do you have a script? So I was like, okay, I got to write a script. So I started writing Spirit as a 120-page graphic novel. So I wrote the 120 pages graphic novel. And where Spirit came from was I had been skimming through previews, which is the sort of trade publication for comics where you order comics at a comic book shop.
Yeah.
And it was dude after dude after dude in spandex after spandex after spandex. And I was like, I love dudes fighting other dudes. I'm not like, I buy almost every Batman comic there is that comes out every month.
Yeah.
I love that. But the market may be a little over glutted at this point.
A little saturated.
A little saturated.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe I want to do something different. So I wanted to do all female heroes. I wanted to do the younger market. You see things like Tagmire and other young adult characters being very, like, I did a market analysis basically. And those characters excited me. And at that point in time, I'm teaching high school, so I'm surrounded by teen girls and their culture and their vernacular and things like that. So I'm like, okay. And I like ghost stories. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but I do believe that comics and movies and novels are the place to explore all that. So I wanted them to be science-based, but then have to deal with the fact that there are supernatural things in the world of Spirit. So 120 pages. There was a subplot based around smuggling. There was a giant end piece that was in a asylum that was abandoned. I did all this work on this stuff. And I went, and as I was going through Kickstarters, because I had not run a Kickstarter before, and everybody says you need to do your research on your Kickstarters. That's what you do. So I looked at a whole bunch of successful Kickstarters in this area to see what made a good Kickstarter, made all my notes. And on one of those Kickstarters, I saw some of Melissa's art. That's Melissa Caprione, who does the art for the comic. And I was just like, that's the image in my head. This is going to be expensive.
So we've run into that issue with our own projects several times. It's like, they get it. I can't afford this anymore.
Yep. And and this is like 50-year-old white guy, and I'm going to approach Melissa. I know she's much younger than me. She does LGBTQ positive comics. I know I am not this person's target audience at first, so I take like 3 days crafting this email to her.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to say anything that's offensive in any way. I just want to find out how out of my price range she is. She comes back and goes, this sounds like an exciting project. I can't get to work on it. Here's my rates, which were completely reasonable.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, this is really cool. We start to do character designs. We start to do some ideas about logo and cover and things that you're going to need for the Kickstarter. And a friend, she runs her own Discord. She is an online webcomic that she runs her Discord from. So she has all these people associated with her webcomic already. So she has a network. So I'm like, and I didn't know this about her. She's completely professional and has a network already. I'm like, okay, this is even better. So she is a person on there who's an editor who's done work with independent comic companies up in Chicago. And I say, can you have a look at this? Because I wanted a diversity reader, and I wanted somebody who wasn't me or my wife to read it, because it's, you need people with their eyes on it.
Yeah, it's important to get that outside perspective on what you're working on.
And this person came back and said exactly the right thing, which was, you're never going to kickstart this. It's going to be $40,000 to kickstart it. that's a car.
Yeah.
And you should make it a single issue. And then she said, you can't just take the first 20 pages either. You have to tell a complete story. If you don't tell a complete story in that first issue, no one's going to join on. You can have things that carry on between issues, but if you don't tell a complete story, why am I going to send any money to your Kickstarter?
Okay.
I'm just paying for the future at that point in time.
Right.
So,
Which, as we all know, with Kickstarters, there's a big risk that when you're paying into something that isn't there just yet, that it might not come at all.
exactly. So she said, do 24 pages. I was like,
Yeah, how are you supposed to? No pressure. Take your 120-page story you have lovingly crafted, and can you cut out down to 20 of that?
which is what I did in about 72 hours.
Oh,
Which
Wow.
I saved. I still have it, but I killed darlings right, left, and center. I was like, I really love this part. Goodbye. Like, if it was not plot, it was gone. And because of that, I think the Kickstarter succeeded. So what we were going to do is do the Kickstarter to raise the money to pay for the art of the comic and pay for the printing. I was going to write it, which I'd written it already. Melissa was going to do the pencils, inks, and colors, and then I was going to letter it.
Okay.
Now, I had not lettered a comic at this point in time, but I knew how to use Illustrator, and I was aware of lettering. So I was like, okay, I can letter this comic for, like, it's my first comic, but I can letter this. I can take care of that. Because not that I didn't think there were great letterers out there. I just wanted to reduce the costs as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I also knew in 50 years, I have learned a few things. I thought maybe that's not the right thing to learn lettering on. So, in addition to this whole project, and this is a theme that we'll come back to over the next hour,
Okay.
I decided to do another project at the same time, which was an online comic, which I call Zed, which is the second thing that Plague Doctor Press produces. It's Zed at zed.plaguedoctorpress.com. It's an all-girl team of sci-fi adventure. It is not YA. It's not like there are girls with guns and they're shooting and there's aliens and all. Like it's not an exploitation comic, but it's not spirit. It's not science and you know.
It's not a merging of science and
No,
mysticism.
no. It's Fantastic Four 1980s science comic. So I did 6-page issues of that, and I paid artists. I said, I can't pay you much, but you get your work up for free, and I can pay you something. You don't have to do this gig if you don't want to. And I paid very little, and I learned to do lettering on that. That's how I learned to do lettering. Now, of course, I want to re-letter everything, and I'm in the process of re-lettering the first book. But so I learned lettering. We got to the Kickstarter, and I don't know. Have you guys run a Kickstarter or did anything on Kickstarter?
I have not. I thought about it the same way.
Yeah.
Like I thought about doing a Kickstarter at one point. I was doing research and looking at Kickstarters and the complexities that go into a Kickstarter.
It is a mental roller coaster that you can never prepare yourself for. The closest thing that I've come through of that is I worked at a company in Indy that went public, and that roller coaster ride I was on too. Doing a Kickstarter is 30 days of it's really the beginning of talking about your Kickstarter, because it becomes that you have to tell everybody about your Kickstarter because you have to hit everybody in your network multiple times.
Yeah.
we had over 200 backers. We made over $4,000. We made. I just want to be clear. You don't get into independent comics to make money.
Right.
That's not what I'm interested in. And like I paid for the art that Melissa did up front. I paid for the Kickstarter art. All that I paid for. I paid for the buttons and the stickers all on my own.
Ooh.
Right? Like Kickstarter paid for the printing and the mailing and most of Melissa's money. And of course Kickstarter, you're like, oh, we raised over $4,000. And then Kickstarter takes their part, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then Melissa started work on the comic book, and then the pandemic happens.
Yeah.
Slows everything down. We get the first issue finally done and lettered and printed, and it looks beautiful. I gotta tell you, boys, it made me weep a little bit when I had a book that was in my hand that other people could hold, that came from my noggin, is fantastic. Now, I've written technical books and things like that before, articles and chapters in academia and stuff like that, but this was all me, all out there, and it was fantastic. And then I got a huge response because of it. I got a great response from all the people back. They said all sorts of great things.
Very awesome.
People sending me their kids reading the book and things like that. It's just absolutely fantastic. And in this process, I got in contact with a publisher contacted me, a publisher from out west, and they wanted to become the publisher of Spirit. We signed a contract, and then more pandemic stuff happens. And I end up not liking what they're doing with the book. We had divergent ideas in terms with its production and timeline and things like that. Great people. They were fantastic. They had a lot on their plate. And Spirit was not the thing that as prominent as I thought it would be. And that's on me. So I canceled that contract. We came to an agreement, and we would have not had a second Kickstarter yet. And I'm already done the second Kickstarter. Like, we're on production of issue 2. And we're planning the third Kickstarter for fall next year.
Whew. Because
I like to stack projects out, which I shouldn't do. So a Kickstarter is fun. It's a wild ride, but you spend every moment of those 30 days thinking about your Kickstarter. It is really rewarding, and it's so nice when you hit that 100%. We once again did that, and everybody looks at Kickstarter, sees those games and those comics and those books who are like, we got 500% funding on the first day. I did not get 500% funding on the first day.
And that's a very rare thing.
I had to work hard to get funded every single time, but I think it grows my audience. And now we're into the point where we printed 300 of Spirit 1, and now between conventions and the first Kickstarter and people buying physical catch-ups on the second Kickstarter, I have to do a reprint. So I have to reprint a comic. Like, that's fantastic.
That is really awesome.
That's a good problem to have.
That is a very good problem to have. So I'm finishing off the relettering of Spirit 1, and then I'll be reprinting that. So I'll have books for Louisville Comic Con and Indy Comic Con, which are in April. And then probably I won't have Spirit 2 ready by May, which is I'm going to Space, the small press expo in Columbus.
Okay.
So, but I'll have stuff on my table, and I want to print Zed as much as possible. Possibly. Do you remember the old Archie comics when they came in those digests
Oh yeah.
on newsprint.
Mm-hmm.
I want to print Zed on one of those because it's goofy, spacey like that. Like it's fun like that. So I want to do that, and the other thing I did with this Kickstarter is I had the theme of this Kickstarter. This second issue is Latinx culture and family. Mm-hmm. So I had 4 Latinx female artists do postcards for me.
Oh, very cool.
So they they were very pleased because I was like, I'm going to pay you for the postcard no matter what, even if we don't back. Mm-hmm. And they were like super pleased, and I paid them on time. And you know, I've really worked hard at getting my reputation as somebody who pays and pays on time in the independent comic sphere, because it is a small world out there, and I want people to know that I'm serious. If I sign a contract with you, you're going to get paid. And with that contract, I can take all those postcards and make more postcards, or mm-hmm. I can take any of those images and make them into posters too.
Ooh, yeah.
So I will have enough stuff, because you're always worried about stuff at a convention. So I'll have stickers and buttons and all that great stuff. Mm-hmm. And I did a couple of conventions already, and just blown away with I sold out of the one convention I did in Bloomington, the Toy and Expo that they have.
Uh-huh. I'm very familiar with the Toy and Comic Expo.
Okay. That show, I had no spirit because we hadn't produced it yet, but I had posters and buttons and things like that. Mm-hmm. No, I think I did have some spirit. But I sold out of the Zed comics the minis that I had produced. Like, out of nowhere, Zed became the most popular thing. People were buying Zed posters. And I'm like, okay, that's good.
It's never what you expect it to be.
It's never what you expect.
No.
I covered my table cost, and I met people, and I saw little girls reading my comic book. That's fantastic. So,
awesome.
So that's Plague Doctor Press. In the next year, we plan on doing printing. I'm finishing off. Zed has 5 issues online now. The 6th issue's drawn. We're just getting the cover ready for it. Then 7 and 8 are in production. So I'll have that. There's 6-page issues, and there's a whole story arc. So that's 56 pages with posters and everything and pinups. I hope to do a 64-page little digest to sell people, and I hope to have that ready sometime before June too. So,
oof. I was going to say, because Indiana Toy Comic Expo, I think, is set up for September again this year.
I don't know what involvement you have with them, but I messaged the guy online mm-hmm. and asked if he had a booth, because I would like to definitely do a booth there again.
I've had a booth at all but everyone they've had in Bloomington. I've had a booth selling my knickknacks and mm-hmm. weird stuff I've made. But I don't know if, because I know they sent out invitations last year, and then more COVID stuff, so it was canceled like the day after they had the applications go live. I think they're still planning on shooting for September this fall.
That's what I hope, and I've done stuff with the guy. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. Billy. That's what. And he knows I pay, and he knows I show up.
Yeah,
at a convention is sometimes important.
No, that's me too. I mean, I pay my booth space and I show up.
Yeah.
I might not always have a bunch of stuff for the booth, but we are there.
Yes. So that is the plan for Plague Doctor Press for the next year. I don't know what Zed will do in the future. We'll see. If I sell out a printing of that digest, I'll mm-hmm. probably do more, because it will have funded itself at that point in time. So.
Wow. That's incredible. You've had actually good luck with getting this all to continue moving through everything as well. I
am so eager to get to conventions. I'm like, I'm a total people person, and I'm a total, I'm so lucky my son will probably come with me and spend, I get to spend the day with him, he's super gregarious and a great kid. So that'll be just a great time to spend with him. And I like, I also like going to those conventions and seeing what other people are doing and finding other artists who are like, I'd never heard of you. So your art's really good. Can you do me a poster? And, you know, get.
I almost always wind up in a booth next to John Buchanan, who's another graphic designer and an artist, and
I think I've heard that name.
yep.
So.
And I actually was I taught him how to do a little sculpting and mold making, so his table filled up with not just prints of all of his work, but then all these little figures that he had made up at one point too.
Yeah.
But yes, John, I'm talking to you. If you're ever watching this, you know me. We can get you on here and talk about whatever you're doing too. Like Mark, for example, because I think you did cover a lot of things I was going to ask you questions about. What was your biggest headache when trying to get everything publishing? Like when you were first trying to get everything moving, like that initial ball to roll.
So the biggest headache through all this is always delays due to COVID. Like, I couldn't meet with Melissa on a regular basis. Melissa's up in Fort Wayne, which I didn't even know when I approached her at first.
Right, and that was a happy coincidence.
Yeah, it's another happy coincidence. So I couldn't meet with her or anything like that. So we had to do everything over Zoom. And I am so lucky because she is now taking off. So, and I'll send you all her information too. She signed a contract last year with Dark Horse to do a graphic novel. Ooh. So now I have a Dark Horse artist doing my artwork, and loves my product, and said just the other day that she wants to do Spirit as long as I'm doing Spirit. I'm like, well, I don't know if I can afford to.
It's like, wait, look, as long as
it's picking up, you'll be able
to. And so that's great. You know, I'm gonna have that on my poster at the convention.
Drawn by Dark Horse artist Melissa.
So she's been wicked busy. She doesn't do anything but contract work. Like she doesn't have time to do freelances or commissions or anything like that now because she's got work now, I think, into next year and beyond almost.
I was going to say, that's kind of what every independent artist looks for is a bit. You do the freelance work, you do the contract work here and there until finally, eventually, hopefully, you don't have to anymore.
Well, so Melissa, we are a great mix of I'm a hobbyist. You know, I have a full-time job on top of this, along with all the other crazy projects I do. But she's a professional and acts very professional with me and allows us to do it. You know, I think that is where you can have a mix, where you can work with a professional and be a hobbyist. You don't have to work with only hobbyists. And you have to think about what's important, you know, what you're going to put your money into. And, you know, do I need another Starbucks or can I just start saving money, you know? And that's what I did. And so that was difficult. Really running the Kickstarter, again, it is an emotional and it's a physical roller coaster because you don't know. You think you're just hitting F5 every 5 minutes.
Yeah, just to refresh the
keyboard.
page. Wait.
Oh no, there's this thing called Kick Track, which is crack for Kickstarter people who run Kickstarters. It has projections on it.
Oh,
so you're hitting that refresh all day long, and like I laugh, but it becomes physically tiring, right? And you're checking your phone all the time, but then there's days that you're like, oh. Like I extended this second Kickstarter to $5,000 was our target, and I also added another 15 days because we were going over Thanksgiving, and I thought nobody's going to do anything during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, well, the holiday's a month away.
It's a holiday. No one's going to do anything over Thanksgiving. So adding those extra days isn't going to cost me anything, and I'm not going to get much on it, but it'll get me I think it'll help us. Well, ended up that was the second best week we had was Thanksgiving.
Oh, because everybody's sitting around the kitchen table
I
trying
guess
to
so.
ignore that one relative that everybody ignores.
Oh,
and
I'm
it's
that
like-
relative. So we did fantastic, and then Melissa did Emerald City Con in Seattle, and the next week did New York Comic Con. The poor woman was just exhausted, but she had a sign on her table with a QR code that said, "If you back Spirit right now, I'll give you an extra gift." So she gave away a bunch of her extra, like, little knickknacks and stickers and stuff like that. And all you had to do was back it at the con.
Even
And
if it was just
that,
$1 or whatever.
that just went off.
Oh.
Like, I knew when she opened her booth. Like,
Oh, no.
I was like, okay, that's starting now. So
Just watch the numbers, suddenly
Yeah.
go bling, bling, bling,
Yep.
bling, bling, bling.
So that we got lucky there, but there are dark days.
Mm-hmm.
You work so hard to, and I have no idea what it's like to do like race car racing, but it has to be like this, where you do all this stuff up to the race, and then you have to do the race, and after 48 hours, everybody who runs a Kickstarter is like, I'm never going to make it. We're never going to get this done. I'm just going to turn it off. And luckily, Melissa had done so many Kickstarters before this that had been successful. She prepped me for all this. She was like, this is going to happen. And, we had talked through the entire process. And that helped so much. So, and then, like, actually, people talk about, well, then you have to do the fulfillment part. Well, I got to make a comic, which I was excited about.
Right.
And then I got to put it in the mail, and, like, I have 4 20-year-olds, so I have a workforce in my house already.
There you go.
So to get the pins and the stickers and everything in the packages, I had a team of helpers.
So when I had first started making toys and things like that in the house, I had made a little dice tower. It looks like a dragon. We put the dice in the mouth, rolls out the bottom of the egg, and I had stickers made up for it for the booth at Indiana Toy Comic Expo. And I think with my wife, those stickers have wound up in most places in southern Indiana and on all of our cups. Everything in our house has a sticker on it now of the same stinking little dragon I made almost 5 or 6 years ago.
There's one on the back of the truck right now, too.
Yes, there is. Yep.
Yeah. So, and then now I've had such a good relationship with Matt at Phoenix Vintage Books in Bloomington.
I love Vintage Phoenix.
Yeah, Vintage Phoenix has been very good to me. You walk in the door and you see Spirit on their rack right away. Like, it is the first thing you come in and you see that pink cover on their rack, and that's just the fact that he's sold out 5-6 times now.
Oh wow.
Of comics. So, and he keeps buying more, and he put the QR code up in his store, and yeah, we've just had lots of luck. And if it wasn't for this darn pandemic, I would have been on issue 2 and probably into issue 3 now, but that's okay. I learned a lot, and I got to be a better letterer. The lettering on the second issue will be so much better because of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
I mean, it's only improvements with each issue
Yeah,
from here
absolutely.
So
on.
that means if you change anything, first edition is going to be extra special and more collectible because of
You brought a couple extras with you.
I'm going to tell you, the first edition, there will be differences in the second edition.
Oh, that's
that's what makes it a collector's item
Yeah.
right there.
And it will be, a few people are going to get some collector's items, I guess. I'm just thrilled that I'm doing a second printing. That's just nuts. That's and I got to that point in the Kickstarter that all the physical catch-ups had sold out, and Melissa's like, you have to do a reprint, and I hadn't even thought about it.
Yeah, that would
Right.
never occur to me. I would, in my brain, just from inexperience, it's like, well, I already printed it.
Yeah.
That's done. We're on to number 3 now.
And she's like, "How many do you have?" I'm like I think I had 37 at that point in time. And she's like, "If you increase the physical catch-up," and we're like a third the way through the Kickstarter. And she's like, "You need to like double the physical catch-up and do a reprint." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense." But I hadn't thought about it at all. So
I want to take a quick moment here to mention one of our sponsors. If you happen to have something old from your grandmother that's creeping you out, it's probably eldritch. So here's a quick word from our
Investigating mysterious unknown horrors. Eldritch Eye Bath. When you need to unsee that which you were not meant to see.
as he should be.
And we're back.
Have you seen? I just picked it up this week. Nameless. It's what is his name? He's British writer. Grant Morrison book.
Oh, I have not.
Oh, it is so freaky good.
Grant Morrison he never disappoints.
These astronauts go into space and they see a asteroid that's going to hit the Earth, and it has a giant rune on it, and that's just the start of it. I'm like, oh yeah, and like lots of great gore and fantastic, phantasmagorical stuff. It's super good. I would definitely pick that up.
So let's bring it up, Grant Morrison. When you wrote your comic, did you have any specific like authors or writers in mind that you had kind of like learned a little bit from reading comics for so long also?
So I think I probably have the best collection of writing for comic books in the city, in Bloomington, certainly. And I'm really influenced by people like Grant Morrison and Alan Moore and Frank Miller.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm an 80s comic book kid, so I'm Watchmen and Dark Knight are fundamental things for me.
Yes.
So I took all of that dark city urban landscape and made a comic about girls who fight ghosts in Indiana.
I love that though.
Yeah, so I also read a lot of young adult comics at that point in time, Teeth and Guts, and these are Myra Tagmeyer books, and The Lumberjanes, which is a fantastic book if you haven't picked that up before, and really anything that was that sort of diversity, people of color comics that, as I said, I can watch Batman go into an alley and beat up bad guys forever. But I'm also kind of getting a little tired of, I'm a young kid who's a male who thinks he wants to leave the farm and go on a quest. Oh, my parents died. Oh, now I found an old wizard who will help me.
Suddenly I have magic powers.
Suddenly I have magic powers. I have to go to the big bad's house and kill him. Oh, he's my father. Like, that story has been told. It's been told really well. But I'm interested in some news stories. And so...
that's one of our favorite tangents to go off on here is overplayed tropes and
so I read
cliches.
I read a bunch of Afrofuturism. I'm always going to be influenced by Ray Bradbury too. Simply is ingrained into me in terms of stories. I'm really liking the work done in comics that is not necessarily traditional comics in terms of there's a guy with a suit that fights bad guys, but I'm also not enamored with like I'll watch The Boys and Invincible and all that stuff, and that's great, but I'm also like, well, this is just the opposite side of that. And Watchmen did it so well
Yeah.
that I'm like, you know.
Oh, the heroes who don't really want to be the heroes kind of playthrough. Yep.
So that new Watchmen series on HBO was just a masterpiece to me. I thought that was fantastic, and they did some super interesting things about race in there. So I'm influenced by those writers, as well as just I read a lot of I back a lot of Kickstarters. So I see a lot of stories that, like I just got one today, The Gardener, and I just finished. I read a really nice one the other day, which was Vikings and Vampires.
Okay.
Which had this great kind of Mike Mignola artwork to it.
Oh, the real hard shadowing and dark and
real,
like real angled.
Real kind of Hellboy artwork to it. And I was like, yeah, I like this. And speaking of Hellboy, certainly all of Mignola's stuff is huge influence on me. As well, on top of that, the work of the director of Hellboy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Guillermo del Toro. Yeah. He is some fantastic. Like The Shape of Water is just fantastic. Is it Shape or Color of Water? I think it's Color of Water.
I thought it was The Shape of Water.
No, it is Shape of Water.
Yeah.
That's a story that is a monster story. He's telling a story that is really the creature from the Black Lagoon, but in a way that is not what a traditional white man would tell that story. You know?
Well, compared to the way the original creature from the Black Lagoon was done, which is it was a monster, and we're here to take it in and capture it and study it for the good of all. And that was not at all the case with The Shape of Water.
No. And so the first issue of Spirit has ghosts in it. The second issue of Spirit has a fake psychic in which the girls use real psychic powers to overcome, which I think is fantastic. And then the third issue, we're going Sasquatch love here. So we're doing Sasquatch in the third issue, and I think aliens in the fourth, and then the plan is to do 6 issues of Spirit as single issues, as Scooby-Doo issues, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to do 6 of those, and then put that together in a trade paperback. So I have that, and use that to fund. So that will be the junior year of the characters, the junior year of high school. And then they're going to do a senior year as a graphic novel. That's what I would like to do.
Sweet.
And then that freshman year.
Kind of ambitious.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. It's a good thing you have all this time on your hands with everything else going on.
The plan. So I plan a lot. My motto is list the work, work the list. So at the new year, I do a year plan. And my wonderful wife, was like, how long is the plan this year? I said, I stopped myself at 9 pages of the plan for this year. So, and the thing is, this is all get to do stuff, right? I have a great job. I work at IU for Kelly. I work 7 to 4. I do their webpage. It's a fantastic job. I work with really great people. It's super chill. It's very relaxed. It is not stressful for me in any way. I've worked years and years in software.
It sounds like just the right kind of environment for a story to kind of begin to bubble and
work in the background. Then I'm done at 4 and I get to do all this stuff that I get to do. It's not a should do situation. It's never a I have to do. It's I get to do all this extra other stuff. And that's do I get to that level of having a trade paperback and a graphic novel? Sure, it would be great. But the thing that we have learned over the past 2 years is you have to be adaptable with plans.
No, absolutely, because they can change instantly.
You can come home on a Friday afternoon and go, I don't know when we're going back to school.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like, as a sculptor, I ran into that issue as the pandemic hit, and then everybody locked in. It was hard to get materials.
Oh, yeah.
You know, everybody was online, but I didn't have a Patreon, or I had an Instagram account. Yeah. I was barely posting to it just because I didn't have time.
Well, never mind the psychic event that we've all gone through.
Right.
You know, I keep coming back to this. So
we all will, I think.
In Watchmen, there is a moment in which this comic is 30 years old. I'm going to spoil it here for you. There's been a movie. Okay. When Ozymandias' evil plan comes to fruition and he creates this psychic event that changes everybody on the planet. Mm-hmm. We have had that, except our psychic event didn't last 2 minutes in New York City. It's lasted 2 years and killed 6 million people worldwide.
Yeah.
We are only beginning to understand how psychically that will affect us and affect our art.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like, there's going to be a point in time where our children or our children's children look at pandemic movies, books, comic books at the same way that we see Vietnam or World War II, that sort of overtold story.
Oh, yeah.
So that is the plan for Spirit, and hopefully it comes true. If not, I'll just keep plugging along. I'm not, you know, no one is waiting for this, but no one is also not waiting for this. Like, you know,
it's a no pressure scenario in that sense, where then you can take your time and make sure it's exactly how you're wanting it to go, and then you can release it to an audience that's more than happy to get something that has something they're waiting for.
Yeah, and then you have a built-in audience, and that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. You know, I have over 250 people on a mailing list just waiting for information. Like, that's fantastic.
That is.
So that, you know, and again, you go into it with your eyes open. You don't go in it to make money. You go in it because I love comics, and I've always loved comics. And now I can say I'm a comic maker, which is better than saying I'm a guy who always wanted to make comics. I don't want to be that guy. And at 50, I was like, I'd done stuff, but I was like, my kids are old enough now. I don't need to. When your kids are small, you gotta take them places. You gotta take them to the doctor. You gotta actually spend time with them and all that stuff. Like
your life focuses and revolves around them.
And you know, I have this discussion with people at work because they're like, oh, you do this and this and this and this. How do you have all the time? I'm like, because my children feed themselves and get themselves to school and dress themselves. Your children do not. Yeah. So it eats up your day. Yeah, and we had 4 kids that were all the same age. There were times, like, when they were 6, 7, and 8, where we were like, make breakfast, clean up after breakfast, clean up any mess, make lunch, clean up after lunch, clean up any mess, make dinner, get everybody showered, get everybody in bed, read the bedtime story. And where is time in there to work and be creative?
Right.
And you got to forgive yourself at that point in time. You got to say, you're right now doing an important thing, which is making children, and making children that are good.
They're going to grow into decent, good people.
So that is how you're aiding society now.
Whew, Mark, this has been a busy day. This has been a busy 2 or 3 years for you.
I'm a busy guy. I haven't even begun to talk about the other projects that I work on because, you know, I wanted to. It's great. I wanted to know how you guys found me.
Instagram.
Oh, okay.
You showed up through your recommendation from somebody else I'm following on Instagram. I saw your stuff. I was like, You'd be interesting. And then I reached out saying, hey, would you like to be on the show?
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten different responses because of that, and I'm definitely hitting people up in the fall when I do another Kickstarter. We're doing a whole Kickstarter episode.
Hey, that's great.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to actually ask about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be happening because when you tell people, the Louisville Con, the Indy Con, even I would say the Columbus Con, when I say it's set in Indiana, people are like, oh. Immediately.
There's a weird draw about setting Indiana as the main location in some stories.
Before I lived in Indiana, that's a whole other story. Before I lived in Indiana, I used to say that Indiana was the place that you either came from or went to in movies and television shows. Like, if some bumpkin showed up in Law and Order, where were they from? Indiana, right? And very few things were set here.
Yep.
But I'll tell you what's weird. So in high school, I love movies and REM. That was really my thing. So I'm in Canada, in a tiny town in Ontario, with my buddies, and we are in love with Bloomington because we watch Breaking Away. We think it's a great movie. We watch it over and over. This is when there's not a lot of videotapes in town. So if we find a movie that we like.
How big was the population of that tiny town in Ontario?
10,000 people.
Oh, see, we're sitting at a lovely 2,400 in Spencer right now, and
so I understand small town. So and then I heard that REM was recording here. I was like, oh, this place is Mecca. I have to go here. We start finding out more about Kinsey. Where's the Kinsey Institute? New York. It's got to be in New York. Or LA. No, it's in Bloomington. This place keeps coming up. We read Gödel Escher Bach. We're totally infatuated with Gödel Escher Bach for like 6 months. Where does this guy teach? He teaches at Indiana University. Oh my God. I completely forget about it. Right?
Right.
Go to Toronto. I go to university. I'm downtown Toronto, working software, suit and tie, all that great stuff. I end up meeting a woman from Indiana. I live in Fishers for a while, and then change my life, change my wife, and I'm like, I'm going to get a PhD. I'm going to go to Indiana. And I call my buddies up, and I'm like, I'm going to Bloomington, and we're going to live in Bloomington. And they're like, you're going to Mecca. So here's the weird thing. The weirdest thing of all. In Breaking Away, in the background of one of the shots, is the house that we first moved to. So as a 16-year-old boy, I'm like watching. It's the closest thing I can think of to a time machine that I have any experience.
This is better
that
than
I was seeing the house that I was going to live in.
This is better than any palm reading you could ever go and have done. Or fortune telling.
Could not believe. I've been to the studio where REM recorded the record. The guy who wrote Gödel Escher Bach, one of his daughter went to Harmony. I've talked to him. This is an incredible place, and I wanted to make it where my comic was because I think there are incredible places in the middle of nowhere. And there are kids who now, like in the 70s, Coppola said, someday a girl who's 12 years old in her backyard is going to make an Oscar-winning movie. And that's who we should be paying attention to. He said that in the 70s. And that is the reality now. That somebody in a 2,400-person town can record 4K video and send it to Indonesia tomorrow.
Oh, tonight.
Yeah.
Or live stream it, as we were doing.
That, we are living in the future. I wish I had my flying car. I do wish I lived on the moon.
Dogs should have a jetpack.
I grew up in the 80s. We were going to live on the moon. We were going to have our jet cars. We don't have those, but we have some pretty fantastic stuff.
Yeah, and it's like I said. I mean, we're set up in a free space at the Owen County Public Library. We have all our massive amounts of equipment we need, which is a switchboard, a camera, a microphone, and a laptop, and one guy to run the whole thing.
I pushed the button.
Thank you for pushing. Well, he pushes the button. It's all your fault. It says it in the scripting. But
That's true.
yeah, we can run. You can run a professional setup with top quality or near top quality stuff now.
It's
in
all
your
John's
garage,
fault.
Your pantry,
It's all
the
John's fault.
library.
And this is why independent comics, Kickstarter comics, are what's exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because you go to previews, and there's still a lot of dudes in that book.
Yeah.
In their underwear.
Yep.
And there's still a lot of those stories. There's more different stories now, but that is because of what's going on in independent comic books, where you don't have to work for Marvel and DC. Melissa's going to make a great living making comic books from Fort Wayne, never having to work for DC or Marvel.
And Melissa would be another great person to, if we do your Kickstarter video.
I think she would, at the very least, zoom in.
Yeah, if we
So,
could have
yeah,
Melissa
at the
on
very
for
least,
5
she-
or 6 minutes to just say
Yeah.
hi, great work.
Yeah, well, she'll be probably, her book will be coming out in the fall, so she'll definitely want to promote that as
Okay, I can
well.
do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely send her our way or send us her way. Either way.
absolutely.
But I think we're about out of time on
Oh
our.
yeah, 4 minutes.
4 minutes?
Anything we want to cover in the next 4 minutes?
Oh, I don't know. What do we have?
So,
Besides your new releases, what are some of your side projects that you've kind of got on the back burner at the moment?
Page 6.
so about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I said, let's do a podcast.
Okay.
And we said, what are we going to do a podcast about? Well, one of our favorite things is this British television show called Midsummer Murders.
Oh, wait. I think I remember these.
So they're all very cozy. You know, it's not dark. It's all funny characters, and they always catch the guy at the end, and it's 90 minutes. They're little movies, right?
Right.
So we were like, well, let's do a Midsummer recap podcast. What do you know? Maybe some people will listen. Well, we're 116 episodes in, and we have over 250,000 downloads.
Wow.
Yeah. It has taken off in ways that we have never expected. The cast has contacted us on Twitter.
Nice.
Woo. And the crazy thing, I'm going to tell you this. If you start a recap podcast, try to start a recap podcast on a show that's done, because they're making episodes. In the middle of running the Kickstarter. I ran the Kickstarter November to mid-December. The month before, in October, we did 8 podcasts.
Wow.
We do an hour and a half every week. And they had 4 new episodes, so we did 20-minute mini podcasts. So we did that month, we did 6 hours of podcast plus another 2 hours of minis. So we did 8 hours of podcasts, which we recorded, edited, researched, all in the month of October.
Good thing you have that workforce living with
Yeah.
you. Wow.
So that is a side gig. I spend somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 hours a week doing that. And it's fantastic. I get to do a podcast with my wife. We sit down for 2 hours every week and talk to each other. Even just the prep and just doing it is just so nice. It's such a great moment that we have together. And then we found all these other loony people that like the show as much as we do. And out of nowhere, we get that many downloads and followers and things like that.
I think we should do a Murder, She Wrote recap podcast.
There's one already.
I figured, honestly.
I only can do that if my grandma was still alive.
So on top of that, so my YouTube demographics, there is a marketer who would love to have my YouTube demographics, because we publish on YouTube too. 60% of our YouTube listeners are female, and 60% of our YouTube listeners are over 65. It is a unknown demographic in YouTube.
Wow.
that we have tapped into.
Huh.
So
Yeah,
the
that's
people that produce the show in the U.S., they show at Acorn TV.
Mm-hmm.
They've contacted us. We've done sponsorships for them. We've just had phenomenal success with something that we didn't. It's not that we didn't think people would listen. We had no idea the response that we were going to get.
Right, because you know that eventually somebody will listen.
Yeah.
Even with our show, yeah, we have our weekly listeners and
Yeah,
watchers.
weekly listeners, 63% of our listeners are female, between the ages of 23 and 35, I believe.
Okay.
13% of our listeners are in Germany. 1% is in Italy. 1% is in Israel. 1% is in a country I can't think of at the moment.
And then that
Yeah.
feeling of, oh my gosh, here's the map with all the places that were downloaded.
Yep.
We're everywhere. That feels so good.
And speaking of whoever's interested for your podcast, the link is in the description.
Okay.
So.
Excellent.
We do live shows. We'll have another one coming up. We had people waking up at 4 a.m. in Australia to join us for live shows.
Wow.
That's insane.
That's impressive.
Just
That's really
insane.
impressive.
Goals, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that, plus I'm a musician. I'm working on a folk rock record right now and a rock record after that. In addition, this year I plan on starting I don't know if you watch Cartoonist Kayfabe. They're a YouTube channel. They do comics.
They're not.
They're fantastic. I'm going to do a series similar to that, centering on comic book lettering that I have coming up starting in the summer. Because I'm a little busy right now.
Hair.
I'm sure you can shoehorn it in somewhere.
In the summer, I have more free time and more free labor because they don't go to college in the summer, so I can use them
There you
a
go.
little bit more. So,
Well,
yeah.
on that note, thank you so much for coming in. We do appreciate
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, Mark, this has been fantastic.
We need to
Absolutely.
drag you and your wife in for a Midsummer Maniacs podcast discussion.
I'll talk to her if she's a very busy lady.
Can't imagine why.
So
Yeah.
she's a director at Kelly, actually.
Oh, nice.
So she's a very busy lady. So if she can't come, I will certainly come again and talk about the podcast.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then when I release records, I'll gladly come again. So
Please do.
This sounds
yes.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, like we said, when you get your Kickstarter for your next
you guys
season,
are in the network now. You guys
Yeah.
are
You
part of
guys.
that network. So
Let us know anything we can add to the descriptions, because this will be on anchor.fm/time of your half-life sometime tomorrow when I get off of work and upload it.
yep.
It will remain on YouTube forever and Twitch for the next 14 days. We'd like to thank Civilian for all the support they've always given. Civilian Brewing Corps, check them out. Great beer, great food. Babs, thank you for everything you've done as well. Jeremiah, thank you. Sol Miguel, thank you for coming back. Yeah, we're going to try to get you back on here as soon as we can.
Absolutely, it's been a blast.
Yep.
You know.
And of course, one last thank you to the Owen County Public Library and their wonderful facilities. Don't forget, you can get music, movies, books. You can play video games on some excellent internet-connected computers here. And coming soon, you have access to a 3D printer at the Owen County Public Library. And on that note, it's time for Jeremiah to say his words.
John, push the button.
Hello, Andy. This is Colin. I won't be able to get in tonight. I'm sweating already. I'm sweating already. I'm sweating already.